war is war. Nobody really wants to ever be at war.
The United States had not been in a major war since Vietnam.
As time has gone on, though, if you've been deployed, it's better than someone that's not been deployed. And not everybody gets deployed.
Or they ask you, we got a mission coming up, such place like Kuwait. Would anybody like to volunteer? You know, so it's all depends on the individual, on whether or not they want to go or not.
I'm trying to make this town a little bit more aware and other towns that, hey, look, even though there isn't a military post, you do have tons of people here that, you know, serve in the reserves and the National Guard that will be leaving, and you need to, you know, there needs to be a little bit more support, and there needs to be a little bit more understanding in the school systems.
How does it feel going to be called up by something? If you're mentally ready, the thing you're most worried about is everybody else. Yeah, I was worried about both my children.
For a National Guardsman, you do your job once a month. You know, the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. So to actually get out there and do a real world scenario, unfortunately, it has to be at war. But to get out there and actually do it is a great experience.
When you got deployed, when was that?
2008. We knew maybe like a year and a half before.
How did you feel about that?
I was kind of curious and excited because just the fact to like get to know a different country and different culture.
I worked with the military police, and they were specialists in the prisoner of war business, combat MPs, which is an out-of-date term. They do everything. The basis then for that was my responsibility was to know the Geneva Convention's requirements and limitations, and then I had peers, other majors out into these other locations that had the hard work to do of making sure those details were exactly correct and that they did get their rights to write a letter home each day, and they had the facilities to do that. You know, they got a pen, they got paper and a pencil, and they were given the right foods.
I trained for a boatswain mate. I was a seaman. We maintained the ship.
Yeah.
We kept it clean, painting, right. Grinding. We did, you name it, that any repairs needed. See an anchor detail when the ship pulls in and pulls out.
All of a sudden now you're considered the expert, and to have generals call you in and say, hey, look, I need your opinion on this. Give me what you got.
And basically the same thing that I do now, I did in country. So paperwork, you know, if anybody gets injured, it's all the paperwork. Pay issues.
Wow, you've made this decision. I mean, there is a couple of things that I was involved in over there that I was absolutely so shocked about how important it was, because the next morning it was showing up on TV on CNN on a ticket tape on the bottom.
So they gave us this little card when we showed up, which shows us some IEDs or mortars, which most of them they were old Russian, I believe, ammunitions. And we needed to know what these were because sometimes they didn't explode. So we'd be walking along, and if it were there on the ground, we'd have to identify it and avoid it.
A lot of IUDs went off, which made it feel like you was out there, because the buildings would actually vibrate, you know, and they had
like active situations to me.
And they actually have to set up the IUDs to make sure that there was no other bombs planted anywhere around the facility. So every day they had a set time that they set these off. If you wasn't used to it when you first get there, it was traumatic. It was like, oh my God, what was that?
Were you ever really afraid for your life?
Some stuff happened, but I mean, you just have to take every day by day and every day at a time and just pray to God.
So all of a sudden it sounded like this god-awful chainsaw animal. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea. So I hear this sound, I hear the siren, I thought I was going to die. I fling on my flak jacket and my helmet and sweated the whole night through on the ground. I slept in my gear.
It must have been hot.
Yes, very hot. Our mission.
You're wearing this, right? The long sleeves and everything?
Yes, the uniform and the vest, the helmet, the weapons.
Is the vest like a bulletproof vest, you mean? Or?
Yes, a bulletproof vest.
As a major, I had a 9mm automatic. I had shot expert, so I had an award for that. Had I ever shot anybody, thank God I didn't have to. But I was certainly capable and knew how to use my weapon.
I was carrying an M4 rifle and an M9mm pistol.
They knew when to target you. I mean, when I first went back in January, when I was at the embassy as the action officer, for 6 weeks, certain times of the day, 6 o'clock, you knew at 6 o'clock it was going to come over the wall, we knew at 10 o'clock it was going to come over the wall, we knew at 2 o'clock it was going to come over the wall, always dinner time, lunch time, breakfast.
Well, we were walking back to our sleeping area, per se, for the evening, and on our way, as soon as we hit the back area, there's all these huge generators that are out there and so forth. All of a sudden, the first mortar came in, and it's like the mortars follow, everything comes in threes. So the first mortar hit, and it threw us back. And it was like, it felt, in our opinion, it felt like it was following us in. And, you know, we ran to the, first thing we did was we ran to a bunker. There's bunkers all over the place. And, you felt like you were running for your life because this thing was, whatever it was coming right in, right behind you. There's nothing you can do.
So having said that rear is, can be dangerous, as you probably can know because you've noticed that I'm deaf. An explosion happened dangerously, aimed at us or troops near us, and the explosion triggered, of course, a decimation of a building. People were killed a distance from us. But I experienced with my colleagues, anybody in my little area, the sound wave, the powerful sound of the explosion, the movement of air.
There is no way with the trauma that you see that we got that, unless you maybe get a car wreck, that it's going to compare to what you get on the ground. I mean, the key thing is for you to be able to stabilize a person.
They'd come rolling in with all these horrible injuries. We do triage, which I'll have to explain. And those that were triaged to get immediate surgery would go and get damage control surgery, which is not definitive surgery. The definitive surgery would be in Landstuhl, Germany. He had severed his cord, so it would be highly, highly, highly unlikely that he would regain function. I remember looking down. He was like this far away from me, and I literally was looking down at those goofy glasses. And there was this terrified young man saying, "Can you kill me?" And I said, "No, I can't kill you." And I said, "Believe this or not, and you won't believe me, but when you get back to Germany and with your family, with your friends, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel okay."
The second soldier we had gotten was, his legs were blown off, his back was blown off, I remember, and I still remember till today, his wedding band was just hanging on by a thread. And I we knew he was dead, but your reaction is to try to save the person. And, for half an hour we worked on the soldier. And I remember wrapping his finger, because to me the most important thing was for his wife to see that he had the ring on.
Some of the soldiers would receive Purple Hearts, even if they were on the brink of death, or even if they were unconscious because of a head injury. They'd have the commander and a couple of people who probably were in their unit who were able to come in and just lay the Purple Heart on their bodies.
We all broke down in the emergency room because we knew, we would say to him, we said to him, we can't save everybody.
Everybody would have a little ceremony and honor this person, and that was sort of a common symbol, was to have boots, a gun, and then a helmet on top.
You'd clean up the body, you'd put it in the bag, and then you'd have to make sure that they were presented. So, say that, a lot of times it was the ear that was gone, it was something. You were cleaning the face and you wanted to make sure that the soldier didn't see the blood that you just did, that you just cleaned. So like the one I told you about where his legs were blown off, the only thing we showed was his face. And, he had some things on his face, but we didn't show them the rest of the body. So for us, those type of things were really emotional for us. And then a lot of these were young kids, so they're coming in and they're crying and they're like grabbing onto the body, and then you have to sort of keep your emotions in check because you don't want to be crying with them. So because we used to always have a box of tissues, so you'd be like this, with your box of tissues, and the soldier would come in, they start crying, and you put the box of tissues out, and they would grab the tissue and you bring it back, and then you take one and you'd be like this so that they would see what you were doing.
I was the head of a casualty notification unit because I was administrative. And there were 6 men and myself, and we were all very carefully trained because what we had to do was follow up after the notification to the families about the deaths of their loved ones. And very few of them were doing things that look at you like you had killed them, But then there were others who would scream at you, holler at you, call you all kinds of names, and how could you do this? And you just stand there and you take it.
That's a particular honor. It's a hard one. And you feel for every family you give that flag to. But you're saying it on the part of the nation and the president, and it's heartfelt.
Well, one of the things that was odd for me is putting my affairs in order. It was really weird for me to put together a will and think about death. It's strongly encouraged.
And it's true. I mean, if it's your time, it's your time. You can't think that way because everything's very random.
You didn't realize really how scared you were until you actually got out, and you're like, phew, and it was like a relief.
Everyone says the troops are coming home, but more troops are still going out.
Right. For us here, we're a signal battalion. So you're always going to need signal, whether there's 500,000 soldiers out there or 5 soldiers.
It's always like that. You have to go and come back. But I'm looking forward to go to Afghanistan in August.
The amazing part, though, is my own children were proud of me anyway. They didn't seem to think it was so terrible. Maybe they were teenagers and they were anxious to see your mother go someplace, any place.
I asked my sergeant, I said, hey, what can I pack? He was like, pack whatever you want. Pack a year of toothbrushes and shampoo, okay? So we get over there, people open their things, there's Xboxes and TVs, and I bring toothbrushes and shampoo. The guy never said I could bring anything fun. So, but yeah, we played Call of Duty, all that stuff.